One of the topics discussed between the Israeli Prime Minister and the U.S. President is garnering a great deal of interest today, and it's all about how regional cooperation from regional Arab states is countering the Iranian threat from behind the scenes. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that the Trump administration is now trying to develop a NATO-like military alliance of Sunni Arab nations, who would consider an attack on one of the countries by Shiite Iran as an attack against all. The journal is citing an unnamed official who says that neither the U.S. nor Israel would be directly part of the arrangement, but would actively support the group. Israel's role is likely to be intelligence sharing, at which the country particularly excels. This mutual defense union is believed to include Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, among others such as Israel's peace partners Jordan and Egypt. According to the source, these nations' diplomatic missions in Washington are already being asked to join the new force. He says that the Jewish state is one of the most sophisticated and technologically advanced countries in the field of mining and a world leader in the water engineering industry, both of which are of major interest to Riyadh. While Jerusalem currently holds no formal ties to most of the Arab states, there's reportedly been a warming of relations amid secret talks on matters of regional security in recent months, with emphasis placed on Iranian expansionist aspirations.
The leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, has threatened to strike the Dimona nuclear reactor in southern Israel. In a televised address, Nasrallah claimed the armed group was capable of hitting any strategic target inside Israel, including the atomic facility. The Hezbollah chief also warned that the Lebanon-based movement, branded a terrorist organization by the EU and US, would turn Israel's nuclear arsenal against it. Israel is estimated to have more than 100 nuclear weapons, though their existence has never been confirmed or denied. Nasrallah also said the US president's meeting on Wednesday with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had effectively marked the end of the Middle East peace process. That saw Donald Trump drop a US commitment to a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Are you a friendly reporter?
President Trump has held his first solo press conference since taking office. With all the media buzz surrounding allegations against him in the media, the 90-minute session looked more like a boxing match.
Well, indeed, the level of fighting between Trump and the media was absolutely unprecedented. And, you should have seen the faces of, let's say, CNN anchors after the press conference, and they told the story of how feisty this clash was. Let's listen to some of the words that the president had to say about the mainstream media.
Well, the failing New York Times wrote a big, long front-page story yesterday. And it was very much discredited, as you know. It's a joke. Wall Street Journal did a story today that was almost as disgraceful as the failing New York Times' story yesterday.
Just because of the attack of fake news and attacking our network, I just want to ask you, sir.
I'm changing it from fake news, though.
Doesn't that undermine...
Very fake news.
I know, but aren't you...
That particular exchange with the CNN reporter Jim Acosta lasted for about 20 minutes. Talking about the future relations with Russia, he was still very positive and said again that everything which has been said about him and potential collusion with the Russian government is absolutely false. Let's listen.
The whole Russian thing, that's a ruse. That's a ruse. And by the way, it would be great if we could get along with Russia, just so you understand that. Now, tomorrow you'll say, Donald Trump wants to get along with Russia. This is terrible. It's not terrible. It's good. If we could get along with Russia, that's a positive thing. We have a very talented man, Rex Tillerson, who's going to be meeting with them shortly. And I told him, I said, I know politically it's probably not good for me. Hey, the greatest thing I could do is shoot that ship that's 30 miles offshore right out of the water. Everyone in this country is going to say, oh, it's so great. That's not great. That's not great. I would love to be able to get along with Russia. Now, you've had a lot of presidents that haven't taken that tack. Look where we are now. Look where we are now. So, if I can. Now, I love to negotiate things. I do it really well and all that stuff. But it's possible I won't be able to get along with Putin. Maybe it is. But I want to just tell you, the false reporting by the media, by you people, the false, horrible, fake reporting, makes it much harder to make a deal with Russia. And probably Putin said, he's sitting behind his desk, and he's saying, I see what's going on in the United States. They follow it closely. It's going to be impossible for President Trump to ever get along with Russia because of all the pressure he's got with this fake story, okay? And that's a shame.
During a press conference Thursday, President Donald Trump discussed nuclear holocaust. He said, Russia and the United States actually got together and got along. And don't forget, we're a very powerful nuclear country and so are they. There's no upside. Nuclear holocaust would be like no other. They're a very powerful nuclear country and so are we. If we have a good relationship with Russia, believe me, that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Pentagon said on Thursday the top U.S. and Russian military leaders have agreed at a meeting in Azerbaijan to enhance communication to avoid unintended incidents. It is an apparent attempt to avoid encounters in the skies over Syria. After the meeting between U.S. Marine General Joseph Dunford, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the head of Russian General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, the U.S. military said the U.S. and Russian militaries have undertaken efforts to improve operational safety of military activities in order to decrease the prospects for crisis and avoid the risk of unintended incidents.
And Russian President Vladimir Putin says NATO is constantly trying to draw Russia into confrontation. Putin made the accusation while addressing senior members of Russia's intelligence agency, FSB. He said members of the Western Military Alliance and some foreign spy networks continue to interfere in Russia's domestic affairs with the goal of destabilizing the country's social and political order. The Russian president added that NATO's newly declared mission to deter Russia is one such threat, and the eastward expansion of the alliance pursues that goal. Moscow has long been critical of NATO's expansion, including its deployment of missiles and troops in countries close to Russian borders. Despite Russia's concerns, the Western Military Alliance has unveiled new plans to build up its forces in Eastern Europe and the Black Sea region.
Two massive terror attacks in Pakistan and Iraq have killed scores of people in the eastern Pakistani city of Lahore. At least 73 people have been killed and several hundred injured when a suicide bomber struck inside a famous Sufi shrine. An affiliate of the so-called Islamic State has claimed responsibility for the attack. The blast targeted police officers escorting pharmacists who were protesting a law governing drug sales. In Baghdad, around 50 people have been killed after a car bomb ripped through a southwestern district of Iraq's capital. The blast comes in the wake of a series of similar attacks which shook Baghdad in the last few days, killing at least a further 24 people. According to reports, Thursday's bombing has been claimed by the so-called Islamic State.
India reportedly suffered the highest number of bombings in the world in 2016. The country's National Bomb Data Center published a report last week called Bombshell that said there were 406 bombings in India last year. 337 of those involved improvised explosive devices. The remaining 69 were ordnance explosives like grenades or artillery shells. Iraq and Pakistan followed on the list with 221 and 161 blasts, respectively. Afghanistan was fourth, showing 132. The report also said that Jammu and Kashmir suffered at least 120% rise in blast-related events after militant leader Burhan Wani was killed in India-controlled Kashmir in July. Jammu and Kashmir is a state and part of the Kashmir region claimed by both India and Pakistan. The NBDC operates as the investigative department following such events and said the figures were obtained through open source, including police reports.
According to scientists, climate change will create more deadly heat waves in the near future. They also believe it will increase the spread of infectious diseases and that it will cause food shortages. Thursday, a group of climate experts met for a climate and health meeting panel at the Carter Center in Atlanta, Georgia. At the meeting, former U.S. Vice President Al Gore stated the extreme weather events calculated by the insurance industry have obviously been increasing. As I've said on other occasions, every night on the television news now is like a nature hike through the book of Revelation.
The ocean is losing oxygen, and that could be really bad for creatures that live there. Scientists found global oxygen levels dropped over 2% in the ocean between 1960 and 2010. While 2% might sound like a small number, it actually has serious implications for creatures of the deep, fisheries, and economies that run on the sea. That's because the number of dead zones or areas with extremely low oxygen concentration are increasing, Without oxygen, macroorganisms can't survive. Those are basically any critters you can see without a microscope. The loss of oxygen is attributed primarily to two things: warming water temperatures and ocean stratification. Warm water can't hold on to oxygen and other gases like cold water can. Warm water is also less dense, and the warmer the ocean's surface gets, the less water circulates downward. That stratification isn't so much a problem for fish that live near the surface, but creatures in the deep might not get the oxygen they need. Over time, fish have to move upward to more oxygen-rich waters, and that leaves them prone to new problems, like overfishing. It's worth noting the 2% drop is a worldwide average. Some areas saw a bigger change than others. The researchers predict the trend will continue and that oxygen levels could drop 1 to 7% by 2100.
The west coast of the U.S. suffers record amounts of erosion. Researchers say that in the winter of 2015 and 2016, erosion along the Washington to California coast was 76% higher than normal. Results of a study published February 14th in the journal Nature Communications suggest much of this erosion was the result of an unusually strong El Nino event. Milder summer waves usually replace much of the sand and sediment scoured from the coast during winter storms. But the study suggests that after last winter, the coastline may not entirely recover. Oceanographer Robert Guza as the damming of Southern California's rivers traps sediment upstream that would otherwise replenish the coast, leaving it especially vulnerable to winter storms. Lead study author Patrick Bernard said that it was one of the strongest El Nino events in the last 150 years and, quote, likely the kind of El Nino we may experience more in the future.
When you think about Southern California, this is generally not an area that handles rain very well, and this has nothing to do with, the people that work there, the people that live there. It's just the lay of the land. I mean, you can get a little thunderstorm, and you can have situations like that where, you have water rescues and big-time flooding problems. We don't just have a little thunderstorm in the forecast over the next couple of days. This is a huge stream of moisture that's coming in. It's going to be nonstop rain pretty much from Friday morning through very early Saturday morning. This could affect areas like Los Angeles. I think we're going to have major flooding issues at times over the next couple of days, probably some power outages as well. I'm going to go through some of that stuff in a minute, but anywhere between 3 and 7 inches of rain is possible in the LA area and kind of some of the surrounding areas. If we did see that much, if we saw 5 to 7 inches, that would easily be an all-time daily rain record. All right, rainfall rates could be over 1 inch an hour. The other thing that happens when it rains so much is the ground gets really loose, and the trees get kind of loose, the root systems, and they'll fall on power lines. So you'll get power outages and a lot of that kind of stuff. If you get a flash flood warning over the next couple of days, please take it very seriously. This is a lot of rain coming in.
It might look sunny now, but this year's weather in southern Spain has been anything but. The region of Murcia has experienced the worst floods in 2 decades, and that's not all.
The disaster was very similar to the one we had in 1983. We were hit by heavy rain, then extreme cold, and it ended with snow.
Salad crops in particular didn't like it, and Spain wasn't alone. Vegetable production across the EU has fallen by 40% in recent weeks. Some supermarkets in Britain even started rationing lettuces. Spain's producers insist that was their own fault.
In a situation like this, it's normal for prices to rise a bit. There are no supply problems in Germany, Spain or France. If the English supermarkets bought their lettuce at the proper market rate, there would have been no problems there either.
Farmers hope to resume normal service by the end of March, but many have suffered financially. Few ensure their crops, and their slim profit margins rely on big volumes. Higher prices help a bit, but specialised labour is needed to deal with frozen, waterlogged fields, and that too eats into profits. For many here, spring can't come soon enough.
Shoppers are starting to complain the world over. The yuan, the euro, the pound in their pockets buying a bit less than before. Inflation's eating into their spending power and could take a bigger bite yet.
The Bank of England's forecast for inflation is for that to reach a level of 2.75% by the end of this year. I actually think that's an underestimate and might, of course, cause them to raise rates, which would be a double whammy for consumers.
On Sterling's Brexit slide and a spike in energy costs, UK consumer prices are rising at their fastest since mid-2014. But a 1.8% rate is still small compared to the prices factories pay for fuel and materials. They're up over 20% on the year. A problem shared with China, where amid a surge in commodities demand, producer prices have risen at their fastest since 2011. Consumer prices also quickening to 2.5% in January. That also potentially a headache, and not just for consumers.
The authorities have decided already that it's time to sort of wind things back a bit with respect to the stimulative environment. Even if they do that at the rate which they suggested they will, I think inflation is going to continue growing.
Others may also have little choice. The Bank of England now seen edging closer to its first rate hike in a decade.
Just this week, the U.S. government gave a conditional thumbs up to embryonic gene editing research. By moving or improving components of human DNA, this new gene editing technology could enhance someone's physical and biological characteristics, as well as eradicate a lot of diseases. Until recently, lawmakers had banned any form of gene editing. The primary reason for this is because genes are too complicated to predict, and even a small tweak could damage us as a species. Opponents of the technology believe that while curing some diseases, it may actually inhibit future generations from producing genius-level thinkers like Stephen Hawking. As research continues, the possibilities may be endless, but for now, humans are going to be stuck with their regular old DNA.
Elon Musk says humans must merge with machinery in order to stay relevant in a world of increasingly advanced artificial intelligence. Speaking at the World Government Summit in Dubai, the Tesla and SpaceX CEO said humans are limited by the speed at which they transmit data. Musk proposed a high bandwidth connection to the human brain would allow us to transmit digital info faster than our current fastest method, typing. Musk says an artificial general intelligence has the potential to make humans irrelevant. He sees integration with technology as a necessary step in order to avoid this. He also cautioned governments to monitor AI development and not let it get out of hand. Musk expressed concerns about the future of AI, such as the more immediate problem of self-driving cars replacing driving jobs. He believes this would have the potential to eliminate 15% of jobs worldwide.
Hundreds of helping hands converge on New Orleans East today as volunteers work to help tornado victims. For one uninsured homeowner we met, the future is unknown, scary. But today she's getting a little help from complete strangers. As simple as a brushstroke, walls, ceilings, windows, Thelma Packnett's home crumbles under the force of this bobcat. Only hours earlier, Packnett gave us the final tour of her tornado-ravaged home.
But as you can see right here, there's no roof at all, so it's gone. It's gone. All you see is wire. This is my kitchen right here. This is the kitchen. As you can see, all of the bricks caved in.
But it was in the living room where Packnett nearly lost her life.
I didn't have time to figure it out because it was coming quick. And then it started saying, boom, 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 boom. And I just fell to the floor. The roof fell in on my head. And as the roof fell in on my head, all the other junk, it would just hit me in my head, left and right. Then I started looking dizzy. And then I had to cover my face like this, and I got down in a fetal position.
Buried under the weight of her own home, she screamed and prayed until a neighbor heard her cries for help.
Finally, he got here. He said, "Ma," and I said, "Yes, baby." I heard him just throwing things from on top of me, just throwing things. And I know my God has delivered me. And I thank God so much for delivering me. And you know why I didn't die? Because I got a story to tell.
Her faith keeps her strong, but PacNet's uninsured. And that means this cleanup could be costly for her. That is, until Lim Watson, a demolition expert helping in the East, heard her story and stepped up to the plate.
I have somebody that said they will take this house down for free. They're not going to charge me.
I could hear her there jumping up and down and screaming and hollering, and she come running out. Where is he? Where is he? And I said, let me get out of the Bobcat first. If I'm going to get a hug, I'm going to make sure I get a good one.
It's just a start to a new beginning, a painful one at that, but she knows this sombering sight is a blessing.
I mean, it's usually about $8,000 to get a house knocked down. Yeah. Yeah, so.
She talked to him for me.
Well, he's just a good guy. I mean, he's just a good guy.
I know I'll be blessed with some of the buildings and things. I'll make money. But this one here, that hug from that lady, was better than anything that I could possibly take. Her crying on my shoulder, that's hard on me.
Through tears, PacNet watches the home she built for more than 2 decades fall to the ground. Her next step, still unknown, but at least the hard work is done for today. All for the price of a hug.
I come there and I told her, I says, this is worth gold to me. And what else can you say? I mean, you help somebody that can't help themselves. And that's the way it should be. Everybody ever joins together and understands that, it'd be a way better